Jesus' name. Let me share an experience with us. Sometimes ago, I was in GSC when I gave my life to Jesus. I was in GSS. Actually, I attended the boarding school, and I was in GSS. Of course, I was born into a Christian family, and of course, I was doing good and everything. But that particular time, so there's this message. It was the same message. It's sinner in the hand of the hand because later I got to know that the message was been preached on the book. Of course, the word of God is there every morning. So when they finished that message, I just told myself, I'm not saved. I need to give my life to Christ. And as at that time, because they choose prefect, we have prefect in PS2 and prefect in SS2. I was the senior boy, and then I was the chapel prefect. So how will it be that a chapel prefect is coming to give his life to Jesus Christ? He's absorbed for me. He doesn't tag me. But of course, I knew within me. But at that point, when I was still thinking about it, and I knew the voice I had was that it's going to help me to be excellent. That's the voice I had. If only I can surrender myself to him. And I have this testimony that since that time, I was talking about PS2, maybe second time, PS2 second time. I understood what it means when God is the one fighting for you, when God is the one doing everything for you. You can score 98 in the course and score 14 in another course. Okay? But I understand what it means to be excellent. When all your marks are between 70 and 72, and you have 40, you have to give 15 subjects. You know what it means? You are just scoring 70, 71, 70, 70, 72, 70, 70. And at the end, if you have to bring it to our time, what is that? 5 dots. Somebody that had 90 and 40, another 80, another 60. At the end, maybe you end up with 4.0 or 3.5. Of course, I was not just the best, but I was excellent. And that is what God can do. And so I want to tell us this: if you can trust God with our lives, with our resources, in everything we have, it doesn't take him anything. It doesn't cost him anything. Sometimes ago, I think, okay, it was when I was doing my PhD, and I was told to send my transcripts, the undergraduate transcript and everything. I've never taken time to check my transcript very well. That was when I just looked at my transcript. Let me even look at it and be sure. Of course, I finished the first class. My first class was 1.51. It was at the border. Only two of us in my faculty there. So I was just trying to check. And I did a study. I'm a researcher. It's always good to do studies and do research. So that my transcript, I had 28 70 years. I don't know if you can relate to that. I finished with 4.51. And in my transcript, I had 28 70 years. You know what it means? Maybe the lecturer pushed me, I don't know. Maybe it was 68, and they're like, let's just give him 1 mark. Let's just give him 2 marks. And I did a study, if I'm to remove 1 mark from those subjects, I will be far behind 4 point something. Okay? But God helped me. Why? Because I trusted in him. So for me, that is the most important thing. Every other thing, God can actually teach us. The Spirit of God can actually teach us all things. That's what the scripture actually tells us. So if we can trust him, we can be sure that he will teach us all things that will be better than even our teachers. So say the scriptures. Okay? Now, so principles of academic writing. What are the principles? Now, in writing, there are different writings. I think it's better I start from that. For us, there may be our master's work, our PhD work, right? They are a kind of writing. Maybe our assignment. The lecturer will tell you, prepare an assignment, do something, something. It's actually a writing. But I want to focus more on publications. Because when it comes to thesis, dissertation, every department always has the format. Okay? So there is nothing I want to say here. You still need to follow the format of the department somehow. Okay? But I'm more concerned about publication. And why I'm more concerned about publication is the fact that I discovered that a lot of Christians, a lot of students don't go into publication because we see it as something tedious and something difficult to do. But I want to tell us this afternoon that there's nothing, if you can write thesis, you can do papers. If you finish your first degree, you can write papers. And that's the principle I've been using over time. For my serious undergraduate students, but there was one who just did 6 focus index papers from his work, and undergraduate students. So that means I'm talking about a B-Tech thesis. Because some people will call it minor dissertation, whatever you want to give it. Okay? Why? Because I believe that if I can set objectives, I'm able to achieve each of the objectives in my work, then I can write papers. And you know, why I'm also placing on paper is the fact that nobody knows you have done anything if your work remains at thesis level. Maybe except your supervisors. In fact, some of them will not even remember anymore after a while. Okay? Imagine I had maybe 30 students last year. 2 years ago, I had 15. Plus master student, plus top up, plus this one. So how do I want to remember all the topics? Okay? So thesis remains in the department. Thesis remains, as stuck on the shelf. When it comes to publications go beyond you, beyond where you are, beyond your environment. And people tend to measure, in fact, in our days as researchers, people measure us by the number of publications we have, not by the content of your thesis, not by how voluminous your dissertation was, by publications. And of course, talking about publications, you see, I want to, if you are not going to learn any other thing from this gathering, is the fact that you can write papers. And I want you to start writing from now, start from today. Most of us want to wait for a supervisor, but because PG school says it's a rule, it's a must, I must have 1 or 2 publications. By the time you are done, if they say they want 3, you can produce 30. Or you think it's not possible? It's very, very possible. Sincerely, it's very possible. One of the things that has helped me as individual when it comes to publication was the fact that I started when I didn't need it. You are doing things when you do not need it somehow. Even if you fail, because you do not need it. And if you do well too, you're on your own. But it's always difficult to start up something when it becomes a requirement. Why? Because there is fear of failure. And I've seen people that miss promotion because they could not meet up, let's say 5 papers. They could not meet up. And one of the reasons is because they didn't start on time. They didn't start when it was not needed. So I want to tell you as PG students, sincerely, you can write papers. And at the time I was finishing my PhD, I was having more than 50 publications. And of course, it only takes to become a professor in Futa, you only need about maybe 28 or 30 papers. That means that at the time I was becoming assistant lecturer or lecturer too, I was having time, so what is about to become a professor? Why? Because I was not writing because I want to become a professor. And Jesus did not teach us to live our lives like that. That we should not use the word standard. They need 5, then let me produce 5 for them. No, that's not God's standard for us. They need 5, do 50. Who says you cannot? Who says it's not possible? If others have done it in time past, I want to tell you that you can do it as well. As I go on, I'll be sharing my experience with you so that we can actually relate. That I'm not teaching us something that is absurd or something outside of this world, but it's something that we can actually do. And I want to tell you too that I had my first degree in Futa, my second degree here in Futa, and my PhD here in Futa. Of course, I was able to travel out in between. But if you check my certificate, they are all from Futa. Okay? So I'm not telling us foreign experience. It's because you study abroad. That's why I was able to do this and that. You can study here. I can actually make we can actually make experience. Okay? Now, so there is one thing we need to talk about when we are talking about academic writing, and that's the issue of clarity and precision. Clarity and I said I'm going to dwell more on paper publications than our thesis. That doesn't mean it's not also applicable to our thesis, okay? But I just want to focus more on paper because remember that for a lot of us, we get to see the aspect of publication. And the international world will not recognize you until you start publishing in journals. Not even for conference proceedings, they are good, but in journals and in scopus in them. I'm going to be talking about that. Because we are not preparing ourselves just for this environment. It's one thing I've been telling some of my colleagues. Once I absorb new people, especially in my faculty, I always want to engage them more. I have discovered that the mentality of the majority of people is that I'm in Futa. Let me just do what Futa requires. But I'm not sure God has called us to be local citizens. We are global citizens. When I was reading this book, The Jewish Phenomenon, I don't know how many of us have seen that book. The Jewish Phenomenon. And one of the books that actually challenged me. Go and check anywhere in the world. in America today as I'm talking to you, 80% of the 20% of the top richest people in America, they actually Jewish. They are Jew. I always remember the book of the book of Esther, when Haman was plotting against the Jews and the rest. You know, towards the end, when the king sent for Haman the second time, okay, as he was leaving the house, the wife and his friend, Bible said they told him that if this man that you are beginning to fall is a Jew, what will happen to you? You will fall completely. I always go back to that particular passage, and I come to understand that I'm the Jew of this time. So if those Jews then excel, then I must also excel. Because what makes me a Jew now? Because I have the blood of Jesus, who happens to be a Jew inside of me. You know, Benjamin Tanaru was saying the other time that all the Christians should be fighting for Israel. And they asked him why. He said, because you believe in a Jew. Because you believe in somebody from our side, so you must be fighting for us. That's just by the way. But I want us to understand that because Christ lives inside of us, we have the right and we have what it takes to excel there. So clarity and precision, very, very important. I was able to ask myself, what exactly do I want to do and why am I doing it? Please don't join the wagon. Everybody is writing, so I must write. No. You must carve a niche for yourself and tell yourself, I'm writing because I want to write. I'm writing because I need it. I'm writing because I want people to see that I have stuff inside of me. Okay? If you want to join the wagon of people because they are writing and we write, a time will come you get tired. A time will come, the same people who stop writing, that means you also stop. That will not be motivation to continue. So clarity from very beginning. And one of the things you must tell yourself from now is that if people can write, then I can write. You know, when you go online, you want to do thesis, dissertation, you want to do your project, they will tell you go online and search your papers. I always ask people, those papers you are searching, go put them there. Have you ever wondered? Those papers, they will tell you go and download 25 publications, go and download 100 publications, and you go online, isn't it? You start downloading them, you come supervisor, I have 100. Who puts those papers there? Human beings like us. And those papers were result of research, outputs as well. So if they can put it there, then I can also put my own there. You can also put your own there. In fact, for us, I want you to go back to undergraduate research. There is a substance in the undergraduate research. You can go back to it. Start from there. You know, I tell people that no matter how bad a publication is, a conference will accept it. And there are a lot of conferences happening around us. A lot happening around us. A conference will accept it. And by the time you go for a conference, people criticize you. They give you, review, outcomes and the rest. You build yourself. Next time you will not make the mistake you have corrected you about. And that's how to learn. That's how to build also. But if I'm not starting something, I'm not moving, I will remain where I am. And that fear, what if they reject my work? What if they say this? What if that's the beginning? And there is no perfectionist anyway. There is nobody that knows everything. Okay? I think it was the last week. I wanted to submit a publication to a particular journal, and I was with one of my colleagues. So I was submitting through my account. Okay? So you just saw, in that particular journal dashboard, they will show the papers they have rejected. They will show the one they have accepted. They will show the one pending review and the rest. He just saw, it was like, you mean they see reject your paper? We are all human. But once they reject, you will not stop because from experience. One thing I've learned is that you never see me holding a paper on my system. You never see, as I'm talking to you, I don't have any paper that is outstanding. Immediately I'm done with it, I will send this somewhere. If you like, reject it. You are not the only person. I will send this somewhere else until the worst. I'll send it for a conference. And I'm sure that conference will accept. At least if the first will not accept, I know the second will accept. And that's one of the things we need to learn. So I must believe in what I have done, except if I'm not sure what I have done. And that takes us back to the spirit of excellence that I talked about that. I told us that will be the foundation for our discussion. Every other thing will be going back to that. So clarity. Then, of course, for every publication, I know we know this. For every publication, there are some basic sections in every publication. Just like our thesis, you have the introduction, literature review, methodology, right? What other thing? After methodology, results, some people call it findings, then discussion, then conclusion, recommendation, whether you have it in 4 chapters, 5 chapters, 6 chapters, we are still talking about the same thing. Also in papers, the same thing is applicable. Every other thing is applicable. Everything we have here is applicable. But in papers, you know, in our introduction in thesis, you have your problem statement as a subsection. Introduction separately, justification separately, aim and object separately. But in paper, everything in the introduction is the same. And this is what I always tell people. You know, I can't remember, I've never written a paper from scratch. And that's why I always want to discourage people from writing papers from scratch. For me, it's waste time, and I don't believe in it. I prefer to write papers from finished thesis. Because what I just need to do at that point is what I call slicing. How you have, given so much time to your thesis? You go here and there, you spend so much, and at the end, you want to publish, and that thing wants to go and collect another data entirely. No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And by the grace of God, there is no thesis for my students. Maybe except very, very few. At least I will do a publication from your work. At least. At least I will do one from that particular work. Because it's easier for me. The data is there. Okay? Even if you are not run good analysis, what I want to do is to run further analysis on the data. For some of us that do survey research, you know how much time it takes to collect data. You go there, they will tell you come back. If you are doing online, they will not respond. And you want to get like 100, 120 of those responses. You can be on this for 3-4 months. You now finish all of those things, and at the end, nothing comes out from such thesis. That will not be good enough. That's why I said you should go back to another meeting. If you are not published for me, please go and just all you need to do is to update the references. All you need to do is what? Update the references. So if your work was done 2005, 2000 and maybe 2000, go and dust it up. And you know one thing about research is that every research is relevant depending on what you are sending it to. Every research. Some people will tell you yes, it's inventing to me, agree. But by the time you are talking, there are some that are hearing about that thing for the first time, or they hear it from that perspective for the very first time. That means you have communicated. Because research is about communication. If I'm able to communicate to my audience and one or two people are able to understand what I'm saying, then that is fine. Okay? So research is not just about all the ideas in the world. No, it's about what? A specific idea that I'm passing across. That's why I always have what we call the area of further studies. That means my work cannot cover everything. So I'm telling you that these are the areas I am not covered. Okay? So that aspect, pick up your work. And if it's your master's, please go and pick it up. Whether you have done experimental research, survey, design and the rest, pick it up, look at your objectives one by one. Because that's the angle I go to. Pick one objective, see what I can do with that objective. Pick the second one, see what I can do with it. Pick the third one, see what I can do with it. Okay? So that is another thing we need to look into. Then another thing is the style and the tone. Now one thing we need to know, we are looking at academic writing. One thing we need to know is that one of the reasons why most publishing houses reject people's work is because we don't adhere to their guidelines. I'm telling you that from my little experience, I can say more than 70% of publications are rejected because people don't adhere to guidelines. Okay? You know, I presented a publication for my professional body sometimes ago, and we run a journal, and I'm the editor. That's the Chancellor of Politics of yours. I'm the editor for the journal. You have academics, you have non-academics, you have people from outside and the rest. You will give them a guideline. In fact, Microsoft Word templates, surname, first name, comma, surname, you put everything there, 14 points, 12 points. We are publishing, because we have our general meeting this week, we are publishing 22 papers. Okay, we have 22 of them. I can tell you that when I was looking through those work, only one out of 22, just the title and the element of the name. Okay, title 14 points, times New Roman, name, first name, and surname, 12 points. Now everything stated there, only one out of 22. So that means if If I have other publications, other paper that be submitted, that means I should have rejected the 2021. Because that's the first thing I saw. The title and the name. Not following simple what? Simple font size. So we should know that every publishing house, every journal, every conference has their style. Now I said I'm not going to go into our thesis because of course we have guidelines for our thesis and dissertation. But for papers, I must ask myself, where am I submitting this work to? That's number one. Then number two, what is their guideline? Then study their guideline very well. Understand what the guideline is saying. If they tell you that you must have 4 sessions, don't insist that no, my own work, I must always have 5. You are the one that wants to publish it there, so you are their mercy. Okay, you know sometimes after submitting paper, some reviewers they can be. Let me use the word funny. Okay, they will insist that until you do this paper will not be published, and you feel that what they ask you to do, yeah, you don't want it that way. You know, I've learned over time that there's what we call research politics. In as what they ask you to do is not against ethics. Okay, somebody says no, the graph you included here must turn this other way, it must not be this way. It doesn't cost you. If that make you to accept my paper, then I will turn it and give it to you in as much as it's not affecting my result. So talking about staff, you must understand every publication or every publishing house has their staff. So I must understand what is the style of this publishing house. Okay, and that will also take me to the fact that there's something we call, you know, I told us that, okay, let me start from the lowest level. There's something we call conference proceedings, conference papers. Okay, I said it's the lowest level, and of course, it always starts on that level. When next your association, your department, the faculty is calling for conference papers, please submit something. That's where to start. Because that's the least that you can do. So there's what we call conference papers. Okay? Then there's something we call book chapters. Okay? You know, sometimes I can decide to like editing. Maybe I call it construction management or something. Then I can now call for chapters for me individuals. Okay? That's a bit higher than conference papers. Okay? But of course, the best you should target is journal papers. Journal papers. And it's also a bit higher. For example, most conference papers, they will tell you 4,000 words, 3, 5, or 12 pages. Maximum I have seen is maybe 16 pages. But most of them is 10 to 12 pages. That's conference paper. When it comes to journals, they will tell you 8,000 words. Some will tell you 12,000 words. You see 36 pages of work. Okay, that means it's a bit higher. Then the other one is book. And I want to also talk about that a bit. I know some people are looking at me that we don't need to talk about book now. But they said there's no way that I cannot write it. From my little experience, it's even easier to write it than to write journal papers. I thought you asked me now. You know, I've always believed that when it comes to book, it's actually meant for a specific set of people. Okay? You know, in my own area, there are some people, once you mention their name, they are the authority. But when I went to my postdoc in South Africa, after my PhD, I was to come home in December, but something happened to my flight. And I could not travel. They asked me to come and pay times 3 of the money. I came to South Africa to make money. Now you want to collect all the money I'm making. I just made up my mind. I just told my wife, see, I'm not coming home. You will not come home. For the first time December, I said I'm not coming home. But you know, I think on the 10th of December, when I observed that I was not going home, I was just asking myself, so what will I know that December 2017 for? Because I will just be in the hostel all by myself. Of course, I will go and greet my host, we will eat Christmas chicken, come back. I will not be going to church. You know, their church is not, you have Christmas service overnight, this one. Once they do service once, 1 hour, you are back home. What will I be doing with my time? So I told myself, I'm going to do something beyond me. So I told my host, I want to write a book. He said, no, don't book. This was this one and this one and the rest. And you know, I actually wrote a book for my master thesis. Not even PhD work. I did something on value management for those in construction at my master's level. And because I did this myself, so that means to an extent, I already have a mastery of what value management is. And that was the beginning. Just like I can write a book of value. Everything I have read, I just began to write. I was just writing. By the time I was done, it was already 218 pages. That was the first book I wrote, 218 pages. Okay? And why I said it's easier to write is the fact that once you get a publisher, every publisher they also after money to make it plain. Every publisher they also after money, especially books. You know they sell books to us. Okay? So once they see that your book has an idea, they want to rush at it, even though they may not understand the content. What they are after is just the grammar. Once it's grammatically okay, then your book is okay too. Okay? In fact, we got our book published, first book with Springer Publisher. Everybody was surprised. You, how did you do it and the rest? If I just started writing, if you ask me how I did it, I can't explain it. But of course, it's all about starting. You know, I told us from the beginning that one of the things that we have been after now, we start. You don't postpone now. Maybe I will start writing. Maybe I will start writing next tomorrow. No, you start from now. You start writing, and of course, book publication. From what you did in undergraduate research, if you have done it yourself, you're already a master in that area. If you sit down and just keep putting things together, you write a lot about what you have learned. And that's how to write. That's how to write a book. Because a book is also about an idea, a particular area. And of course, since that time, after I wrote that first book, my post that I went to be there, like, all my students were writing book. So everybody is not writing book. Everybody is not writing book. By the time they finish their PhD, the first thing they will demand from them is a book. And what's that book about? For once you have done your PhD. Since that time, I think he has more than 50 books now, my host. Because all the PhD students, as you are finishing, you must write a book. You will just tell you this is how to do it, what you have done. And by the time they start, it's like, so I can write a book because it's based on what you have done. You have actually done it by yourself. Okay? So please, let's note this. We started from conference papers to book chapters to journal papers, then to book itself. You can actually do it. You can write a book in your area. Okay? Then, another thing I want to quickly rush over is that there's something we call integrity and ethics. Integrity and ethics. And this is very key and very important. I know there are a lot of AI tools out there that you can use to write your notes, to write your thesis, to write your papers. But sincerely, it damages us because it's not bringing out the best out of us. It's not helping us to think out of the box anymore. Of course, I use AI a lot for so many things, but not when it comes to writing, not in writing. Okay? And that's part of the ethics. If I came across a particular AI tool sometimes ago that can write an entire book for me, just say specify what you want, the title, number of chapters, just specify everything. They belong to the level of the deep sea. For those that know that use deep sea, be paid for. You can do anything with those things. But I want to tell us that the more you give yourself to them, the more redundant our brain is. And the more lazy you become. Sorry, I'm using that word. And God has not called us to be lazy. Remember when we read the other time, see that a man diligent in his work. Not see that a man relying on AI for everything. And that's where we are losing it. Ethics, content. And of course, part of the ethics is also the issue of plagiarism. Now, one of the reasons why some publications get rejected is the fact that for a lot of us, what we are taught growing up is that when you see anything from a material, copy it, paste it, give honor to whom it is due, put the name there. Okay? But I got to know over time. I thought myself, some of these things I'm telling us, I belong to a department or to a faculty. With all these things I'm talking about, you have a lot of them there. They will just say, that man is just doing too much. Just do your 3 papers and leave the place. Okay? So I was not having people to learn from. So I was actually teaching myself. And I learned these things by myself. The first book I told you I wrote, by the time we were done, the plagiarism was just 3.5%. Because it cannot be zero. The plagiarism level cannot be zero. It can never be zero. Except But there's nothing new under heaven. And there will be some things that will be from some other places. What I'm saying, there's something we call self-plagiarism. When you repeat your own work severally, that means my own work. I put it here, I copy a paragraph, put another one there, self-plagiarism. But of course, the one we are used to major plagiarism. I want to tell as much as possible, please, when you are writing, be yourself. Don't try to do copy. You know, some of us will copy, will now take it to those software. People that are using it, you know what I'm talking about. They will now tell you to help you shovel it, to help you rework it. I know they do that at PG school. I know. And I've challenged the people there. I know. Take any work there, 75%, they tell you, no, you don't have to help me. By the time they are finished, it will be 21%. They'll just, do some software, abracadabra. But sincerely, we have not learned anything. We have not added anything to ourselves. So when you want to write, this is the principle. You know, we are talking about academic writing. Now, this is the principle. When I want, let's say I want to write a paragraph on Chapel of Faith. I want to describe Chapel of Faith. I'm seeing the material. I'm talking about Chapel of Faith, other material. The rule is that you at least have 2 or 3 materials. Because that's why we call it literature review. It's actually a review. And a review will not be based on just one thing. It's not a review, it's a copy. I don't get what I'm saying. If I want to review this man, I should not just base my judgment on what just one person says about him. The best way to review him is to see different perspectives of him from different people. So if I'm able to get 2, 3 materials on Chapel of Faith, maybe a material is saying Chapel of Faith was established in 1978, and I want to write the same thing in my own work, the same thing. I can use that simple statement to write a paragraph of about 10 lines. I can start by saying there is an auditorium in Futa, there is a chapel there, and that chapel is called Chapel of Faith. Yes, people have been developing over the years. It has actually nourished people individually, spiritually, physically. I'm still writing based on what? In fact, that single line that I saw. So I'm not plagiarized. And by the time I have done, I will still put in bracket that I got my source from this particular material. That's how to write. So that means anything I'm reading is just giving me an idea. It's not telling me everything about the movie. So now imagine that I have this material about chapel, this one about chapel, this one about Chapel of Faith. By the time I bring those 3 materials, because at the end of every review, I must be able to now talk about Chapel of Faith in my own words. So much that when somebody wants to write about Chapel of Faith next week, my work should supersede what every other person has written. I don't know if it's because I must have advanced the knowledge, the body of knowledge in that area. So that means somebody picked the one that was published in that 1978 and the one published 2 years ago, and they also picked my own. Mine must be more nourishing. Mine must have a lot of substance more than their own. Why? Because my own is the latest. And that is academic writing. So I must build on that. And that is why some people will tell you, now 2 of us can write the same thing. It's not correct. We cannot write the same thing because we think differently at every point in time, and we write differently. Even if all of us have the same material, the way I will start my own statement will not be the same way you will start it. Okay? And even if I write today and I pick the same materials and I want to write again tomorrow, I will write a different way. Because we are human, we think differently based on the condition, the environment, and the rest of them. So please, let's know that there is what we call ethics and integrity in writing. Then the other one I would also want to talk about is the aspect of the critical thinking analysis. Critical thinking. In research, one thing I've understood is the fact that he was able to think critically. Because if you want to do what others are doing, the level of rejection of your work will be very high. There is a miss, a section of the miss I don't always miss. There is a section of the miss I don't always miss. And that's any miss has to do with IT, technology, software, this one. Not because I'm in software engineering, I'm not in school of computing. But I picked interest in that area. I did a paper, let me just share this with you so you understand what I'm saying. I did a publication sometimes ago. I did a publication sometimes ago, and by the time the editor got the paper, international journal, he told me, he sent me an email that I would like to publish this work to latest. And I was trying to understand why. You know the reason? Actually, the paper is about mechatronics in construction. For those that know what mechatronics is, it's purely computer or purely engineering, electrical, mechanical engineering side. Okay? So now relating it to construction. Though the belief is that how does it relate? What's the relationship? So the editor wanted to be the first journal of construction that will publish something in that area. And you know what? Because every other paper that will be publishing after that will be referring to that journal. And that will increase their own citation. You understand now? In fact, that paper, the only thing I did was to submit. It was the editor that did the final editing. The correct, they are supposed to do the viewers comment, send it back to you, then be going to and fro, all of that. He did everything himself the way he wanted it, and now sent it to me for my own final, for me to approve. Do you think I will not approve such a paper? Of course, as he's landing, I was approving. And the paper was published the second day. And I'm not just talking about just editing. And that will not take me to the last one. I was talking about the issue of the where to publish. Now, there are different levels of publication. Because it will not be okay for us to talk about academic publishing without talking about where to publish. Even in journals, especially journals, I want us to target something we refer to as a scopus index journals. You may be hearing that for the first time, but it's nothing strange. Scopus. Scopus index, like you can actually check online after now and just go to see. And why I advise people to target Scopus index is that it makes you an international scholar. And for me, that's the best. I have people on this campus who have 50 publications, but they are not known anywhere outside Nigeria. And you know why? Sometimes it's not because they are not brilliant, but because of where they have chosen to publish their work. And I review for a lot of grants, scholarship, and the rest. When students, come on, I want to apply for master's degree outside the country. When you submit your work, and the first thing you look at for is, in fact, there is a word you say, what is international presence of that candidate? And what does that mean? That means, is it visible online? It's not about double scholar, it's not about my name. No, we go to Scopus. Although there are some other factors after that, corresponding author, that one. But you first go to Scopus to see. Once your name is not there, then you are out of the way. Then we now start checking. Okay, this one has 5, this one has 10, this one is a corresponding author in 3. That one is secondary. But the most important thing, international, audience. You have to be internationally recognized. And I want us to start from there. In fact, if you want to do conference, there are some conferences, they are actually Scopus index conference. It's not common in FUTA. I need to be sincere with us. I've not seen a conference in FUTA that is Scopus index. And there is no journal in FUTA called that is Scopus index. But if you go to schools like Covenant University, or you go to schools like University of Illinois, they have a lot of conferences. And by the time you finish publishing those conferences, your name will be on Scopus, because those journals are Scopus index. I want you to target those ones. Because if you're scoring double, if you're scoring double, you have papers, then you're also what? Internationally recognized. So there are different ways of knowing journals that actually index is Scopus. For that one, I can send those materials on that after now. I think I still have like 5 minutes. Okay? So, now, as I'm rounding up, I want to talk about the issue of time management. Time management. Now, in academic writing, in fact, the colleague just missed out in publication. Why? Because they sent her viewers' comments and she missed the deadline to respond and improve the paper. Why? Because they are busy and busy, they are busy. In fact, it means everybody is busy. And until I come to the understanding that I am busy, but out of my busy schedule, I should be able to pay out time for what I like and what I enjoy. Okay? Time management. And the fact that we are seated here this afternoon, I want to encourage us that we should create time for academic paper writing. If it's 1 hour every day, sincerely it's not too much because we are still students. Okay? And I'm sure that a lot of us we have dreams, we have goals, we have aspirations. Any of my students that I have met so far by the grace of God, most of them will tell them start publication, start publishing. The time you will get your full funding and scholarship, it will just come easy because out there everybody wants a ready-made product. Nobody wants anybody that will come over there and they will start teaching the person. No, that's why they ask you for international presence. How many publications do you have? In fact, there's one of my students, Donya Baje, she just traveled. She came, sorry, she finished from Jabu. As at that time, in her department, they were like, Jabu, they are not serious. Because all of them were just having first class. You test them, you cannot even answer a simple question. Okay? But I saw the lady, and of course, unfortunately for me, she was under me for supervision. So when she came, I told her, see, you do research is not what this is a pure research. And I was grateful that she actually she embraced it and she was able to do it. I'm rounding up. And as at that time, she was bringing all those in quotes nonsense topics. My student knows me. People that I work with me, there are some topics I don't do because I know I cannot publish them. So why do I waste my time on topics that are archaic, topics that are also, so to speak, I don't do them. So she was making at a point, I don't know, something just flashed my mind that this lady can work on there's something we call IEQ, that's environmental quality in building. Have you had about it? I know some read about it. And she fell in love with it. And she was okay, she did a good research on it. By the time she finished, I saw that she was not interested in publishing. Of course, I have collaborators that I work with. So I sent the one to one of them. I love this one and the rest. And I think we did maybe about 5 publications on my work. She was still in Nigeria. In fact, she was lecturing at Girls University when she started applying for PhD. Okay, and I told her, just start applying. I sent her all the papers and everything. Do you know did I say she was lucky or fortunate? Which one now? We are in the Christian, so you need to mind the language you use. She was fortunate that she was not lucky. Okay. She just saw a particular funding. They want to do IEQ of, they call them grade A buildings in the UK. Grade A project. They are projects like the Buckingham Palace, like Buckingham Road. They are trained. There are some projects you don't touch, you don't modify. You leave them, even if you want to strengthen them, you must restore them to the same way they were. They call them grade A projects. So they want to do IEQ of those projects. And then there was a fund for it. I just told her, go ahead and apply. 2 things work for her. One is major, the other is minor, so to speak. The major thing was that she already had 5 publications on IEQ, even though she knows nothing about these publications. But the fact that she has 5 publications on IEQ, that's one. The second one, when the professor was relating with me and we discussed, that means our host over there was like she was just surprised that somebody will finish a master's work. And we have 5 publications, scopus index. And a lady said, I want her. She left, I think she left in June. Yeah. You just simply arrange for marriage. If I'm going to come. She arranged for marriage. I think the husband has gone to join her now. She left and everything. Now, why am I driving at? Is the fact that we read the other time that seest thou a man diligent in his work, he will stand before kings and not before ordinary men. So, diligent. And the version I read talks about truly. So, please, I want to encourage us in the believers. It's not enough to hear about this. I said at the beginning, a lot of people must have heard about this. You can also hear about this out there from different sources. But the most important thing is to start. And you have what it takes to start because that spirit of excellence inside of us. And it will teach us all things. As I round up, because I said I'm going to be sharing my experience. When I started writing, because I did not need it, so it was easy for me to just write. I was not hearing anything about scopus and the rest of them. In fact, the first time I heard about scopus was after my PhD, when I traveled out for my postdoc. That was the first time I heard about scopus. I made up my mind that I'm going to be publishing and just be publishing and the rest. But two or three things help me out, which I also want us to key into. The first thing is collaboration that helped me out as an individual. I'm sharing my experience now. The first thing is collaboration. In fact, I tell you that the last time I wrote a paper on my own, maybe when I was doing my PhD. Now, I was telling you the other time that I sent my students home to a collaborator. Okay, I have a lot of friends that wants to write, but they don't have students. I hope you understand that. They want to write, but I always tell them, don't start collecting data afresh. That will waste time. Let me give you my project student. Just write it. If you want to do further analysis, this is the data. And before you know it, his name is an author, I'm an author, the student also is an author. So imagine if I have 10 students in a session, and I'm writing like 5 papers from each of them. That means in a year, I can have 50 publications. So when people ask me, how do you gather more than 500 publications? I tell them, collaboration. Very key, number one. Then number two is the fact that you must develop that. One of the things I mentioned, develop the habit of writing. Don't make it a task. Maybe it's a task, that means a must. No. Make it something you just enjoy doing. And it's an individual thing. I must just enjoy writing. I must just like writing. Write abstract. And that's why for me, people say I'm not social, not that I'm not social media. When I see people writing long essay on our books, you know, the first thing, I would have used that time to finish an abstract. Yes, now I would have finished an abstract for a conference. And by the time they accept an abstract, they will have no choice than to write the full paper. That's plus one. Before you know, plus two, plus here and there, collaboration is key. And of course, you must be ready to write. The last, in conclusion, you should understand that mastering principle of academic writing is a vital step towards achieving academic success and making meaningful contributions. It's not just about writing, you are making contributions. Okay? Sometimes you go, and as you are writing, some additions come to you. Some additions come to you as you are writing. I will just share three. I'm rounding up. One of the additions that comes to me is the fact that you also make money. I know you will like that. And I'm serious. I don't do any other thing. And I hope most of you know that lecturers are not very good. Most of you should know. I mean, it's nothing to write. Okay? But I will tell you that my writing is actually helping me. For instance, if you write a book, like there's a book we just wrote, and three of us in a Springer published book, and then they will give us $1,200. Convert that one to naira. I'm a millionaire as you're looking at me. But you know, that means I'm not just writing. Yes, I'm writing not because of the money, but I'm saying that the money will come. People will look out for you. Okay? People will tell you, come and get our research fellow. I mean, I've received such a different. I cannot come over. We don't even need you to come. You just need us. We just need you to collaborate with us. When I'm writing, I'll put my affiliation. Because I see most of my papers, you will see Twitter and other affiliation. Why? Because I'm working as a research fellow, and they pay you for doing that. Okay? So that is that. Then there are some bodies now that are paid for publication. There is this academic licensing and something. Last year, I know because that got £7,000 payment for all what he has written. So those things you are calling a waste, those things you are just doing and whiling away time. The time the money will come, you can be sure that it will come big. People will be surprised. Then you can go to your village, bulldoze all the houses there, and start there. Okay, so I will stop here. Thank you very much. So that I can have our Hallelujah.
Praise God. Hallelujah. Praise God. Okay, can we do something? Can you just rub your palm together? Rub. You're not rubbing. Rub your palm together, expand it, then jam it together. One. Hallelujah. Sir, we're very grateful. Thank you. We're very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, I mean, I don't start recanting what you said, but one of the things I learned from what you said, sir, so you know that you really impacted me personally is that it is God that makes people excellent. Thank you so much. Everything you've said, I mean, personally, I have a lot of things to get from you on a personal level. Thank you for being here. All right, we said we will interact. We do not just come to listen to what doctor has for us. We also have things we want to ask you. Personal, personal struggles. I mean, I struggle too, right? Okay, personal struggles. I have mine, but I want him to hear your own first. You have 30 minutes for this, please. How many of us have? Is it okay? One, two, three, four. Okay, let's start. I mean, if there is time, we'll take the other ones. But for now, let's have this four. So maybe you just write, then you come on. Very interactive. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir, for the insight and enlightenment. So my question is, okay, let me just narrate the whole scenario. I began my master's earlier this year, and I had to stop, or let me say I paused for family reasons. So being alone at home, I was just like, I don't want it to just end like that. I mean, if at all I will continue my master's again, maybe in some other years or next year, I just want to have something to do academically now to not while away time, but to be to keep up with the academic environment. So I began writing commentaries and literature reviews. So I have it in mind very much to publish because for financial reasons I wanted to publish with free publishing sites, free journals and publishing sites. So, but when I got there, what kind of discouraged me in publishing my commentary is what I saw that like I will need to publish standing on maybe being a master student or a PhD student before I can publish. That means I have to have a student account somehow, or I to be with the supervisor somehow. So it's like the door is locked away from the non-students. So I don't know what to do concerning that. If I don't know. That's why I want to ask. Is there any way a non-student or an aspiring master student can still publish and be recognized? Thank you, sir.
Number two. Number two. Okay, person.
Once again, sir, I want to say thank you for this wonderful invitation. My question is very similar to hers. One of the challenges I had for publishing with school journals is most times they set certain criteria that we within Nigeria find it difficult to meet. Okay. For example, I had a paper I wanted published in one of the Scopus journals, and it required ethical consideration. And as at then, I had already completed the whole paper, and I was having it a challenge to get that ethical consideration. And then also, the second challenge I have with Scopus journals is the fee, the article processing fee they usually charge. For most of them that we may want to publish in, you see that they have very high article fees from $600 to $1,000 and over. It's very challenging. So how do we go about this? And then the last question, for we who are coming up researchers, how can we be able to identify novel and trending research areas whereby we can begin to um, write on? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So I want to ask, what does it mean if your undergraduate supervisor tells you that undergraduate projects are not publishing? So I used to believe that there's no project that people have not done before. I don't know if there's project that people have not done before. I don't know about it. So I also want to talk about like now, for instance, my own project now that I just finished now is somehow similar to something someone has done on YouTube. But I don't know if it's possible someone to publish that kind of thing. You understand? So I'm not that certain. I don't want to know about it, and I don't know about publication too because I'm also having that kind of I want to publish my book. Even though I have one or two things that I added to my project, I just finished. But really, I don't really know about that, how to publish it. I also want to get an idea about it. I think that's my question. Thank you so much.
All right, sir. Let me just add one more question to this. You made mention of the students bringing arcade topics. What do you mean by arcade topics? And why do you call a topic arcade?
Okay.
Okay. Uh, all right. When you have a research that they kind of tell you this research is a local one, how do you make it global? When you are looking at something from the perspective of the environment, is that what necessarily makes it global? Or sorry, makes it local? And if you work on that, how can you make it global? Again, you were saying something about you writing paper from objectives. From the objective. Um, Now, writing five papers from a research work, does that mean that the objectives individually are sufficient, or you just have to work on the data? There's something, okay, or you have to work on data analysis, carrying out further analysis on that. Thank you. Sorry, you have one.
I just remember something very quickly. I know most of my body I'm just facing this stuff. Most of them they make use of AI because I remember a colleague of mine too. He makes use of AI. He was just telling me that I should just type it on AI generated it. Because you're talking about plagiarizing stuff, so I have to be clear on that part now. Now and then how then if how they will engineer how do you now write if there's a how do you now write it like where are the sites you go to generate those codes that we need. Like now, how do you go? I don't know for AI. I need to AI help me my own. But I just want to know, okay, this is a particular site you go, this is where to do this, how to arrange it, and to get those codes together.
Okay, so I like engine questions on this. Uh, okay, let me start with the first one. Review papers to be published, publishing houses. You can actually publish your review papers. You don't have to depend on any supervisor. And you don't need to have any student account. It depends on where you want to publish. For example, while I was a student, I know I published somewhere. You know, I told that I'm not having a school course, so I was just publishing anywhere. But what I do then is that I will just go online and search conference on value management or journals on organization, anything I see, I will just send my papers there and of course I will just do that. But these are the ways you can go about it. Every student, especially if you finish computer, you have the student address. You have the student email address. So I don't know how many of us are aware of that. You have the Microsoft account. I hope you know for those that finish undergraduate, and if you are a master student, you have the right to a Microsoft account. If you go to CRC today with your ID card, they will create your username and your password for you. And in fact, it's one of the things I told my students that were graduating that before they leave, they should make sure they have their account because it opened doors to a lot of things. For instance, I use Copilot a lot. And the Copilot has some aspects you cannot crack, you cannot use if you have Microsoft account. And with that student account, you can just log in into that account and have access to it. That's one way. Then the other way is that since you talk about review paper, now one thing is that most journals don't accept review papers. Okay? Most journals. Some people are doing that. There's something we call bibliometric analysis. Scientometry, there are so many names so that will not just be calling grammars. So what they do is like, you know, like you are tracing history of publication publications over time, and there are some software like NVivo and the rest of them that you can use to like map out. So people want to see not just writing and writing, people also want to see like a tree that we started from here. People started branches from here, but now this is where we are. Do you understand? So if you can include that in the work, it makes it more acceptable. But also I want to add that as much as possible, please focus more on conference, especially conference that are around us, but that are school possibilities. You know why I said we should focus on school? I talked about the issue of money the other time. Most conferences want to make money, and the more papers they have, the more registration fee you are going to pay. 10,000, 20,000. You understand? And that's why conference hardly reject papers. And by the time you go to present, people criticize your work. So that means you become a better person. That particular period. Then not student without a supervisor. No, it's not true. In fact, for me as a person, I feel like a situation where supervisor think comes students want to finish. It's not even the best. I've discussed with my colleagues several. You are not helping such students. In fact, once he send his work to me today, so I also pick up the work. Send the paper out, put his name at the first author and the corresponding author, put his friends, and put the student somewhere. Send the paper. It was after it has been published that the students saw it. Now, who owns the work? It's no longer the students. I hope you know. Because most people will tell you once you are third, fourth author, they know that they just added the name. The real authors are the first and probably the second or the corresponding author. So if you have the right to publish, and I know in some time, like in Twitter now, we also give the credence to single authorship. Although I don't encourage it, but there's nothing bad in it. Do you understand? Because it must balance the two. Because if you are the only one publishing, one good edge. But if you have two, three people, three good edges, okay? Internationally, they believe that that paper will be better than the one that only you have done. But there's nothing wrong in publishing the book. Please, if it's your work and the sponsor is not involved, please publish it. You can start with a conference. But please, don't also publish on the blogs. It doesn't, there's no credit attached to it. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. On blog, you just put some things on blogs, on commentary and the rest. They are good Wikipedia and the rest of them. I'm not saying they are not good, but they are not academic writing. So that means they will not be counted for us at the end of the day. Then, criteria for publishing with a focus on ethical consideration. I sympathize with you. You know, I was also in that world sometimes ago when my paper was at the verge of acceptance, final acceptance, and they asked me for the ethical clearance. I wrote them that there is no ethical clearance and the rest. Told me if I don't provide this, the paper will be rejected. After, I think after about 18 months of attempting to do comments and all of that and all of that. But this is what you can do. Two options. Number one is as soon as you're starting a research, please get the ethical clearance from Twitter. And if you're applying as a student, it's cheaper. You pay 5,000 naira as a student. As a member of staff, I pay 20,000. For a funded research, you can pay as much as 50,000 naira. Okay? But one thing I did for my own students was to look for a topic that brings all their works together. I don't know if you understand that. I look for like a common, a theme, so to speak, that brings all their topics together. And apply for ethical clearance on their behalf. So if you pick this person's work, that ethical clearance can work for it. If you pick this person's work, that clearance, because I look for a topic that unify all their topics. But if you cannot do that, it's always better that you seek it from very beginning. Okay? Then another thing you can do, in case you are that bad, I just learned that you can get a letter from your supervisor or from your HOD. I wrote a letter for a particular journal about 3 months ago as head of department when they asked for this ethical clearance. And what I wrote there is the fact that all the process our thesis goes through, like we don't allow students to go out to distribute questionnaire without checking and ensuring that it adheres to standard. We don't allow this and that and that, and they accepted it in place of ethical clearance. So if you can approach maybe to to write something like that for you, I think it can work. Then fees publication, I tell people personally, I don't do paid journal. Personally, I don't do it. And because I don't have the money, how much is my salary? I'm now paying $600. That one is even cheap. There are some MDPI's journals now, they pay as much as $5,000. That's about 7.5 million naira for a paper. My salary for how many months? No way. Okay, so what I do over time, most of these journals, they have two options. But most of us, we don't read into detail to see the two options. Okay, there is one that they will ask you that you think. There's other part that is free, but they are always very in somewhere. Every and okay, not every, but most of those good journals, they have that free publication that you can actually explore. But you know, they will call it such that it's going to look so bad. They will tell you that your work, people cannot download it easily, people cannot do this one easily. Personally, I don't care. People that miss my work will look for it. Do you understand? So, in fact, all the papers I have done so far, except for local papers, you know that one you have no choice. Total set, total jet, this one, 20,000. That one is still okay. My salary can still carry that one. But anything that is in dollars, I don't have salary to actually do that. And Futa is not paying us extra for publication. So I don't do it. The other thing is over time, you know, this is actually a learning process. There are journals you mentioned, so I will tell my students, don't go there, don't publish it anymore. Why? Because I know they are difficult to publish. And number two, they will be demanding for too much money. But some journals, I will tell you, let's target this at the first instance. I know that they are going to publish, and if they publish, you don't need to pay anything. So over time, you can discover those journals in your feed that are last for feed publications, and they are Cisco possibilities. And I must tell us, there are thousands and thousands of them. There are thousands, but you know, you will not know until you check their website and until you read their guidelines to see that okay, also they have APC, article processing charge, and they have the other one, free publication. It's always easy. So, in fact, at the point of submission, most of those journals, there is a portion they will ask you. Do you want to, are you paying for it or you want to publish for free? But the option they will have chosen for you is that you are paying. So you don't even know that you can click that option and select that you don't have money to pay. You will have filled the submission, then you just see them sending you invoice. So if you can meticulous enough, most of those journals, they have free publication option. Then instead I talked about issue of novel and trending research areas. Now it depends on our field. There was a time in my feed, it was all about, I have somebody that finished from QS. It's all about cost control, feasibility study. That was how I was talking about the archaic topic and the rest. But you know, I was privileged to be in a place where they were talking about sustainability. When UN first introduced all these SDGs. And actually went to a conference outside the country. And I was asking myself, I'm not relevant here. That was the first thing. I'm not relevant. What am I doing here? No poverty, zero poverty, life below water, all those SDGs. But you know, after I asked myself, does that mean there's nothing in construction that can address life under water? Are you saying there's nothing in construction that can address zero poverty? I began to think. And I was asking myself, the construction workers, are they not poor? So if I'm addressing poverty among construction workers, I'm making construction into what? Sustainability. That's a trending topic. Everybody wants to see, oh, so this thing is also applicable to this area. Then technology generally, you know, we live in an area of technology. There are two things I work with, or I've been working on. And I tell my students, if you want to work with me, and you want to work on trending topic, let's focus on two areas when we relate this to construction. What are those two things? Sustainability and technology. Because it is the real thing. God is talking about carbon emission, carbon trading. Let's bring this to construction. Okay? In fact, the other time somebody was talking about food. You know, the kind of food we eat and the rest. I'm like, it's fine. Let's bring it to construction. There is nothing you cannot bring to your food. And by the time you bring it, you're like, so this thing is possible. Then it becomes a trending topic. Okay? The first time we do something on cloud computing. Cloud computing application of construction, people like, no, go to computing. How can we do this kind of topic here? You know, because they felt once it's cloud, once it's computing, computing, then it's a school of computing. Until we tell them we use Google Drive, we use Dropbox, we use OneDrive to store our data and the rest. Don't you have data in construction company? BOQ data, prices and the rest. How do we store such data? So cloud computing is relevant. Then they relax. The fact that they are just hearing it, they can reject it as well, but if you can explain yourself, it becomes a trending topic. Okay, so those are the areas that are trending topic. Then, when they say undergraduate projects are not publishable, that's their perspective. That's their perspective. And I've also discovered that for most lecturers, for most supervisors, they don't give undergraduate students the attention required. And that is why they come up with this. Personally, for me, I publish more of my undergraduate students than masters and PhD, and I will tell you why. I find it easier to motivate undergraduate students than master students. Master students and PhD, they are already becoming sick fish. You cannot bend them. Undergraduate, I can motivate my students like, don't worry, by the time you collect like 250 questionnaires, you know what it means. When you analyze it, when the select examiner comes, he will give you A because others will collect 50, 40, 30. You are not bringing 150. There is no select exam that will not give you A. Is that not the truth? There is none. By the time you do your work, others are using mean items for. And you try to use factor analysis, man with me. People who ask you, what's man with me? It means you have done something better. There's no use for a B. So if you can motivate them like that, if one of them wrote yesterday on his on her status that as I saw made me to write 200 pages undergraduate work, 200 pages. I think our work was about 200 and maybe 214 pages undergraduate. She had 5 objectives, and she spent the same time on the same campus. So for me, I will never say that because I publish. So I'm not trying to like exonerate the lecturers. Okay, what I'm saying is that you can actually publish on your undergraduate. Then people have done it. There is nothing new on that. It's the truth. But I said it the other time. Out of that thing, people is not. So people are just hearing it for the first time. And another thing we can do is that we can actually improve what we are doing. For example, I want to talk about the weather. There's nothing new about the weather, so to speak. But can I bring in human factor into the weather? Can I bring in technology factor into the weather? Can I see how weather, for instance, affect this phone? The people will ask you, what are you talking about? You say weather can it affect phone? But everybody will want to like, okay, what do you mean? By saying what do you mean, that means there's an interest. I'm still talking about weather that everybody has been talking about over the years. So that actually calls for, I mentioned critical thinking. That also calls for, exposing ourselves. Please, let's listen to news, especially news. There was a time I got about 68 different digital tools, and I made up my mind that my students will be taking them one after the other. About 68 of them, cloud computing, gamification, and it's easier for me because I'm undergraduate level. The scrutiny is always very low. But as master, they'll be asking you, what's the relevance of this one to our profession? But undergraduate, anything can be done. Okay? So that makes it trendy. And now almost everybody wants to be doing that particular topic. Okay? So it's not new, but you can bring something into it. Another area you can bring something is through your analysis. The analytical tool that you are using. A student of mine did something, I think, okay, our PhD student. She introduced, of course, we are using PLSM for our modeling and the rest. By the time she brought her own, I didn't know that there is an AI-enabled PLSM that will give you your results in 3D. Before that has been lines and all of those things. That's something new. By the time she was displaying it, even me, because I was seeing for the first time, how will I face such a student? Though the area is the same, it's still what we have been talking about, but it's bringing in something new from that particular area. So it can always be something new. Then, can I publish paper from projects similar to others? In fact, research, we say research is in a circle. There is no end to research. Somebody have done it. How? What method did they use? Even if they are using the same method, how about the time difference? That can actually affect, especially for experimental research. If you test my temperature now, because after by the time I'm sitting and you test again, it may not be the same because of that time difference. So the fact that somebody has published my temperature before doesn't mean by the time you do it again, you cannot publish another thing entirely. So, but please don't let any of these factors disturb you from publishing. We can talk about arcade topic or old school topic. So that's what I meant, like old school topics. Let's talk about something trending. When you are published and the international reviewers are telling you, we are sorry, we have passed through or we have gone over this particular area. So that means everything you have done is just a waste. And it's always good to start from the very beginning. Now, when it comes to our research, one of the things I've discovered is that there is the way we point our topics. We did a research sometimes ago and we looked at people in Ogbese, those states here. So that means if I'm to find my topic, I would have said that maybe examination of something in Ogbese, on those states, Nigeria. Anybody that sees that outside, we tell you it's not relevant to me because I'm talking about Ogbese. But can you imagine if I said that topic, examination of something in a developing nation? Because that Ogbese is just a study area. Until we come to the understanding. And for some of us, if we write from our abstract, we writing in Ogbese, Ondo State, Nigeria, in Ogbese, almost everywhere. Now I correct my student, in Lagos State, Nigeria, in Lagos State, the problem Lagos State, Nigeria, it's not Lagos State, Nigeria. Lagos State is just the fact where Lagos State should appear. It's your methodology. If I'm looking at building collapse, okay, I should talk about building collapse as if I'm talking from a general perspective. Now in my methodology, I will just tell you my focus or my study will focus on Lagos State because of this and this. But my result, as applicable in Lagos, it's also applicable in Port Harcourt. It's applicable in Ghana. It's applicable in South Africa because poor workmanship is everywhere. I hope you understand now. Poor the weather, rain falling when they are doing construction. It happens everywhere. So why would I be saying Lagos State, Nigeria? Okay, so that can actually make our work too localized. And people will not feel that, okay, so since your work is local, then go and publish the local journal. So let's avoid all those local words. In Ogbese, in Akure, or Korean of those things. So please, let's remove them. Then, people for meet objectives. Because I have that idea from the very beginning. Any student of mine coming to do work with me, I always think ahead that I'm going to slice that work, in line with the objectives. So that's from the very beginning. That's from the introduction. Students address each of the objectives. Whether they know or not, whether they know or they don't know. I always tell them every objective in your problem statement. Tell us the problem that necessitates objective 1. Tell us the problem that necessitates objective 2. Problem that makes you to develop objective 3. By the time you are done, okay, and you want to slice the work, every objective already has its own problem statement. Every objective already has its own justification. So it's just to bring them out and put them in different files. Okay? But also understand that there are times we need to combine two objectives. There are times we need to do that. Maybe because the result in this area is not that robust. But this is another thing I do. When I discovered that some of my work, the papers, they are too lean, I can dig in different analysis. Where analysis, I can now start comparing. Some of those demographic information we have, age, name, sex, those things, they are useful in research. For instance, maybe I'm looking at factors affecting attendance of students in fellowship. And I have those list of factors and I've analyzed main items score. This paper is small, I want to increase it. It's not a problem. Analysis, I will now do male versus female. In that same paper, I will categorize based on age. Age 20 to 30, how they attending studies. I will now do comparative analysis using Puskara list, man weekly. By the time I finish those things, that same paper will be more than the requirement. So what do you think is linked? You can actually improve this by analysis. Then you can go and do literature review to actually join it, and the paper becomes a low paper. Okay? Then, then how to use AI. I always say that you should use AI responsibly because you own it. Even though you are using AI to do the work, Again, can you categorically say that this is my work? If you cannot say it, then it's not your work. It's AI's work. And AI is not the paper. His name is not on that publication. So how do you attribute such to AI? Okay, now artificial intelligence, the opposite is natural intelligence, isn't it? Before artificial came, that means there was natural. So what happened to natural? What went wrong with the natural? What went wrong with the natural? Now, that thing you said you did, people introduce you to it. That my student that said she did 200 and something pages. Let me shock you that she was not having a system. She was typing her project on her phone until I helped her with the system. She was typing her project. You know what it means? For you to type your project on system, on your laptop, you know how easy. Now to be typing your project on your phone until when she wanted to do analysis. It's about what you want to give your time to. You can achieve what you want to give your time to. You can achieve anything. But you know the temptation we always get to use AI because you think it's fast or it's faster. I can easily get my work, I can easily get it done and the rest. But the fact remains that you have not learned anything. And the essence of the research is not just to be able to submit a thesis, but also to what? To learn one or two different. That's why I tell my students, you can't give out your analysis. Going to do for you. No. You run it yourself until you get it. Not because I can do analysis myself and run the data. But I've seen most of them. Okay, if one of them was engaged by this cloud, they call it cloud computer something in Lagos. The first job he was earning maybe 1.2 million naira. Why? Because he can do analysis. And I always use that to encourage others. That see, learn it now. Because you need to do it. You can't know where you don't know where you will be in the next 1 month, 3 months. And these are the things. And I know some of them that they turn into business. You want to do analysis, don't worry. They will run everything for you. If you are not learning it at that time, you be doing that. I also tell people currently now, if they are doing it for you, remember it was because they learned it at the time. And that time you are supposed to be learning it, you are giving it to them to do. But that means you will not be opportune to help others in the future. So be as much as possible. I know AI has come to stay, but that we should use AI responsibly. What do I mean? For instance, I want to generate updates. I can use AI to give me idea. That's how to use AI. Not whatever AI gives me, I just adopt it and it becomes my work. AI help me to do a review on something, whatever it gives you. And me, I know how to catch together with AI. There is no how you want to use AI. For me as a person, I will know. But there are ways I will not tell you. There are ways to know. But you know, some of us are also lazy. We don't want to go to student work. There are ways to know. Because AI is, that's why we call it artificial. It's not natural. It can never be perfect. So there are always loopholes. Let me tell you one of them. You can use any of these AI to generate nature review for you. It's reference citation. By the time you are done, go and check these citations. Most of them are not existing. They are nowhere. And you know, unfortunately for some of our students, maybe it's an area I have worked in. AI will now put my name, someone else's name, someone else's name. Even though I have a lot of papers, I know I have not written this. Once I see one, I know that AI is working. Okay, but please let's work it out ourselves. It helps us to know. AI will not write papers for us. AI will not help us to attend to reviewers' comments. I know it's easier to attend to a reviewer's comment if it's my paper and I've done it. It's easier for me to attend to the comment. In fact, there are times I argue with reviewers. No, you don't understand what I'm saying. This is what we have done because it's my work. But if it's AI, how do I engage reviewers when it comes to such aspects? Okay? I think that's all the questions. Okay, thank you very much.
Hallelujah. Can we just again appreciate our God? I personally would believe that would be blessed this evening. I'm going to see that causes and it's going to be powerful. But before we leave, Chaplain sir, thank you for coming. I don't know if you have one or two things to
appreciate him for coming. Um, I'm happy seeing him, and I would also like to know more about him. I'm also a researcher, I'm a pastor. Sincerely, one thing about me, I'm between the call, I'm between research, and I try to allow God to decide what. If I want to decide for myself, I think by now I shouldn't be in this country. Sincerely, I will have disappeared. People like this with PhD. But when you have a call, God take a place. It determines what you do. Otherwise, you venture into something at the end you will regret it because you have an assignment. So sincerely, I wish to know more of you. I went to a man when I came to FUTA. I wanted to run the second PhD, and it was a particular HOD. But I felt to myself, I don't know how that man became HOD. Sincerely, his, his approach was too bad. I didn't tell anybody, I just kept it to myself. I walked to your office, I told you I wanted to do this. I needed your counseling. For good 4 months, I was looking for this man. I will leave the chapel and I look at him. Okay, what's a big man? You're not a big man in you. Sincerely, there are places I can enter, you will never enter that place. There are places ìwé ló máa gbé wọlé èmi ìpè ló máa gbé wọlé.